would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name's Robert Whitelie, and I am the Rebel Broker, licensed real estate broker in the state of California, member of the National Association of Realtors. But please, don't hold that against me. Welcome to Tuesday, October 18th, 2016. I hope all of you have gotten to a running start this week in terms of chasing down whatever your personal goals are. If you'd like to reach out, feel free to head on over to the website. It's therebelbroker.com. From there, you can reach out to me by clicking on Contact Rebel Broker, and you can send along any ideas, suggestions, observations, or questions that you might have. Or if you'd prefer, you can just email them to me directly at therebel@therebelbroker.com. And while you're at the site, go ahead and enter yourself for a chance to win a $50 gift card for Amazon. In order to do that, all you have to do is click the button at the very tippy top of the page titled Take the Survey to Support the Show. Use the same email address both times you're asked, and then you will be in. And come the first show of November, we'll do a drawing for the person who's going to win that $50 gift card. Now, keep in mind, right now we're kind of doing this every month. So we did it at the beginning of October and had a winner there, and we'll do it again in November, and we may do it again in December and again in January. Who knows? We're going to keep going till we hit the goal number. So feel free to join in. Everyone is eligible who's entered. So if you don't win this first time around, you may end up winning the next time another drawing comes up. So feel free to join in. And boy, I got to tell you, I cannot remember the last time I've had more trouble settling on a topic for a show. As I speak to you, I am now recording this show for the third time. I got 20 minutes into it the first go around. I got about 10 minutes into it the second go around. I don't know. Maybe I'm just in a weird mood today. Started off with a very depressing subject, the 50 worst cities in America. Moved up to the top areas to move for families, but that was too general. It was talking about states to move to. I prefer to get a little bit more specific. And got into that, and by the time I got into the 20 minutes in the first one, I'm like, I'm not even enjoying recording this. How's anyone going to enjoy listening to this stuff? So now on my third try, I want to hit buyers are flooding into these 10 markets. So these are areas that are showing a lot of growth, and the list was created by the folks at U.S. News and World Report. They went through Census Bureau data and came up with areas that have a net increase in populations. So they've gone ahead and calculated how many people have left, how many people are coming in, and these are the folks that have net positive migration. So that's good stuff to know. If you're someone who is more drawn to numbers in terms of figuring out what communities to go to, and are willing to perhaps, or if you live in these areas, right? If you don't live in these areas, they may be attractive to you if you're someone who's interested in expanding beyond your local area or maybe even outside of your state. These could represent some great opportunities for you. And what we'll do is we'll go through this list, we'll figure out the net migration rate, and see where it falls, see where these things are ordered. And there's a few communities on here that I probably would have guessed they were on the list. Probably would have been off by a ranking or two here or there in terms of where they hit in terms of being in this top 10 list. But what we'll do then is we'll look at the last couple of communities and maybe look at a little bit more data in terms of what properties are selling for, what the average prices are, kind of get a little bit more of a feeling for what the barriers to entry are. So let's go ahead and start with number 10. Now, what's interesting about number 10... To link up with an article that I ended up not telling you about. As I mentioned, the very first story I started to cover was the worst cities in America. Number 10 on our list is Miami in terms of net migration growth. of 5.02%. But what's interesting is Miami also comes up as the number one worst city to live in. So at the same time that we might see data that put it in the top 10 in terms of cities that are showing growth, it's also number one in the top 10 worst cities to live in. And according to the article, and I'll include this article. I don't think I'm going to end up doing a full show on this article. Maybe we will and talk about it a little bit more. Some of them do represent, I think, good opportunities for you to participate in rejuvenating a community, if that's something that you're interested in doing. If you jump in there and sort of get your ground truth. The one thing we always talk about here is getting ground truth, and I think Miami is actually a really good example of that. Now, I lived north of Miami for a little while, and during the time that I lived there, it was absolutely a very, very diverse sets of communities right next to each other. I can remember that landing at the airport, getting in your rental car at Miami International Airport, and if you got off on the wrong exit on the freeway as you're heading to the beach, you could end up in ridiculously bad communities where if your license, and back then the license plates were issued in such a way that it was easy to identify rental cars. And in some of these neighborhoods, folks would just get stopped right there on the street and they'd get robbed. This was back in the early 90s, so I don't know if things have gotten a little better. But I do know that there are still, the ground truth in Miami is if you don't buy carefully and cautiously, you could end up absolutely buying in a bad situation. And as I always say, if you're buying in Miami, you'd want to buy for the reasons people go to a place like Miami, which means you're able to see the water or easily walk to the water, that type of stuff. But according to this, as I said, the article will be included in the show notes for today's show. Quote, no city in the United States is worse to live in than Miami. The city's median home value is and these two numbers are kind of a mind blower in terms of understanding the local market. The city's median home value is $245,000, is well above the national median of $181,000. However, the median household income is only $31,917 a year, which is well below the national median of $53,657. So you've got folks that live in a scenario where they tend to make less than everyone else in the country, but their homes tend to cost more than everyone else in the country. That is a absolute recipe for disaster in terms of folks being able to find adequate housing and get things done. And they point out here that there's a very spaced out difference. You've got images of seaside mansions and bikinied beachgoers that spring to mind when you think about Miami, but it turns out the city's not all glitz and glamour, quote, thanks to a mind-boggling disparity between the tippy top of the city's wealthy and everyone else, which earned it the number one spot for the worst cities to live in the United States. Now, to get back to our list, I just wanted to mention that since it crossed over the list we did earlier. Number 9 on our list is Denver, Colorado, with net migration of 5.05%. Now, we've talked about Denver repeatedly over the last few weeks. In fact, I think was it just yesterday that we were actually talking about the market in Denver. So not only is the market looking good there from an investment standpoint, it's likely only to get better if you have a continuing net increase in migration. Next on the list is Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. This is another community that has come up on lists previously. It's not one that gets featured frequently, but it is there, and it's absolutely growing with a 5.35% growth in migration. Number 7 on our list. I'm trying to see how many are from this state. All right, not a few. San Antonio, Texas, with net migration of 5.36. Now, I've been to San Antonio, and I've been to the next. Number 6 is also a Texas city. And boy, I tell you, it's some of the hottest, most humid stuff I've ever seen. So God bless you. If everybody, all the folks, all that huge number of folks that are net increasing the population of these cities. Number 6 on our list is Houston, Texas. And Houston is by far the most humid place I've ever been to in Texas. I had a family member getting married in Houston. They had to have the wedding at 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, so it would be cool. And it was still 100 and something degrees and ridiculously humid, like sweatbox humid. Net migration of 5.43 increase in Houston. Next on the list is Orlando, Florida, with a net migration of 6.37%. Orlando has popped up, I think, on a couple of our lists. Number 4 on the list is Charleston, South Carolina, with a net migration of 6.49. and the reality here is these kinds of numbers are going to guide you in a couple of different ways. So because it depends on your personal preference for investment, right? If you're like me and you want to do a buy and hold strategy, you might want to figure out what's fueling the migration, and is it something that's going to be a long-term payoff in terms of the community? Are these folks who are going to come and want to live there for a long time? What's fueling it? That can be a very important thing for you. But numbers like this are helpful for folks who want to do the buy and rent strategy. They're helpful for folks who want to do the buy and flip strategy. And in some cases, you can even argue that it's a little bit more lucrative for the buy and flip folks, particularly in scenarios where you're starting to see dramatic jumps in migration. Satisfying that housing need can be a big deal. So if you can find good deals in some of these locations where you can then turn them around, remodel them, make them more marketable, make them more livable, make them more attractive, you're definitely going to reap more simply because you're going to see that higher level of demand because there's more buyers coming into the marketplace, right? Since you've got more people moving in, you're going to just have higher demand. And it's really sort of playing that supply and demand equation to your best benefit. Sarasota, Florida comes in at number 3 with a net migration rate of 7.67. Number 2, and these are two cities we've talked about before, and this, I actually would have guessed this was number 1 if someone were to just say which one, where do you think this one falls on the list? Number 2 is Austin, Texas with net migration of 8.86. And all the surrounding areas, I think Austin remains a very good, solid bet for anybody who wants to do investing. And I kick myself for not having taken my own advice over a year and a half ago in terms of heading out to Round Rock and doing some investing. Number 1 on our list is Fort Myers, Florida, with a net migration rate of 9.36. That's pretty huge. So definitely big growth going on there, indicating a lot of potential opportunities. What we're going to do next is we're going to start at number 1, do a quick look at the marketplace, and see what we think, see what looks good there. What's the ratio? What are we seeing between purchase price acquisition costs versus what you could make on rental? And is this one of those markets that might make a good investment for someone who wants to jump in? We'll get into those numbers in just a second, but right now we're going to take a quick break, so don't go away. We'll be right back. Are you ready to jump in and start your search for your first investment property? Maybe you've decided that it's time to own your own home, or maybe you're ready to sell your home and move on to something new. No matter what your goal is, the Rebel Broker can help. That's right, aside from hosting this show, I am also the owner, broker of Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services right here in Silicon Valley. With over 25 years experience serving Silicon Valley, Morgan Hill, San Martin, and Gilroy, I or one of my great agents can help you achieve your goals in real estate. So if you're ready to look into taking that next step towards achieving your real estate goals, point your browser at www.soldbyrobert.com. That's www.soldbyrobert.com and get in touch. Let me show you how I will earn your business and your respect. Again, that's www.soldbyrobert.com, or you can call me at 408-852-0525. California Bureau of Real Estate ID 00984-909. Welcome back, everyone. We are talking about areas that have had the greatest increase in migration, I guess you could say. More folks, they have a net positive number in terms of folks coming into the communities. So when you subtract the folks leaving from the tracks entering, these are the highest cities that are seeing the greatest amount of growth. And of course, you see that kind of growth in a population, that equals more demand for housing. So that's a great opportunity for you to step in and provide that. Since people need it, it's good to be able to provide it. And at the same time, you can be building your portfolio of real estate. Now, we're talking first about Fort Myers, which, jumped into this list at number 1 with a net migration of 9.36% from 2010 to 2014. And let's see here. Some of the general numbers. Median sales price, which is good. I think this is a great price point in terms of being able to potentially jump in. It's not going to be a huge barrier to entry for a lot of folks. $188,000 is the median sales price. We'll get into that in a minute, though, because once you take a first glance at Fort Myers, I think you really see a redefining of the market. And the median rent is $1,600. In terms of trends that we've been seeing, everything's on the uptick. We were since October of last year. Things really sort of jumped starting in May. They peaked at about 205,000, and then as of this month, they are at 192,000 in terms of median sales price. And rent has taken sort of a similar move. It took a big jump in the month of June. That was really where it kind of peaked out at $1,750, and now it's sitting at about $1,600. You'd want to get a little bit more longer history to see if you can't predict where those things are going to go in the future. But and you need to figure out what is going to be your most lucrative strategy in a place like Fort Myers. Is Fort Myers a vacation destination? Is it the kind of place where you could potentially rent a property as a vacation rental? So that just because I'm seeing so much water, obviously, when you do this search and you look at it on a map, there's just an awful lot of shoreline, and it looks like a great opportunity to potentially take advantage of that. But that's when you really start to notice the huge difference. And let me just explain what that difference is. As I zoom in on the shoreline, I see homes that are priced for $1.4 million. I see 1.19, 3.4. As we head further south along the shoreline, as we see I'm not even going to try to pronounce that river. On the north end, just south of the College Parkway Bridge, that's where I'm seeing these million-plus prices going up to $3 million. So clearly, you're not going to be making an investment at that level. So is it possible to take advantage of what would probably be the reasons why people would want to be here, meaning the water, without having to pony up millions of dollars? Well, as you move down, you do see these little pockets of locations where you do find things. Now, here's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath home, still way above that $192,000 mark, or that $188,000 median price. 4-bed, 3-bath, 3,200 square feet. And if we then take a look at that and try to suss out what a rental rate would be in that same location, you discover $4,200. We're literally on the same street for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. So under those circumstances, that math might actually work. So this is one of those scenarios where you're definitely going to have to familiarize yourself with what's out there. At that $449,000 mark, I think I could actually make that work pretty well with an over $4,000 a month rental. It would depend on what kind of rental we're talking about here. Would it be a vacation rental? And again, you'd need to figure out how attractive Fort Myers is in terms of getting those kinds of folks visiting. Is that really what drives a lot of the things that nearer to the shoreline? But if you're looking at getting longer term rentals, if you're looking to supply housing for folks who live there, it tends to change as you go further inland. I start to see properties like a 2-bedroom, 1-bath home for $94,000, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath for $80,000, 6 bedrooms, 3 baths for $225,000, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 1,600 square foot home for $190,000. So what I like about this is it gives you that potential variety of options. You could go somewhere perhaps that is very desirable in terms of folks that are looking for a vacation opportunity. You could go ahead and find places that will cater to simply folks who live in the city and want a good place to live. And you, of course, in all of these cases, can do the math and figure out what makes the most sense. Are you going to get what's going to give you the highest level of return? But there's plenty of options here, and I'm actually stunned at how many homes are listed for sale, well over 300. It's a little bit mind-blowing, and if you do the check, one thing I always like to do when I'm looking at a city like this is first get that initial view, that homes that are currently for sale, and then in that same area, I want to sort of get a feel for how many homes are trying to get rented right now, just to see, to get a feel for how long are these things staying on them? Is there tons of competition in terms of pulling in those rental dollars? And this is where the story gets a little bit more depressing, because when I go over to homes for rent, there are tons of them. In fact, there are 333 currently listed for rent, which spells out to me that if you're in this sort of a market and you're looking at doing this, that you not only need to buy smarter, you need to potentially try to negotiate down further, but in addition to that, you're probably going to have to shave money off of what you're going to ask for rent, because remember, you'll be competing with all these other properties, so you want to be the one that folks rent first, which means you're probably going to need to charge a little bit less. Okay, let's go down to the next one on our list, which is Austin, Texas. I've always been a big fan of Austin, Texas. I've been there quite a few times. I've stayed there for extended periods of time. I've gone and looked at properties there. There was right around 1999, 2000. I was very seriously considering moving to Austin. So I've got kind of a soft spot for that location. Now, as we saw with Fort Myers, Austin offers a lot of variety in terms of price ranges. Definitely some neighborhoods that are just stratospheric, and others are going to be a little bit more reasonable. Austin has a relatively large downtown area with a lot of interesting areas that you can potentially purchase both north and south of the primary river that sort of cuts the city into two big chunks. The average listing price is $562,085. Now, remember, the state of Texas, as I understand it, doesn't make sales records public. So all we get is listing prices in terms of the averages because they don't publish what folks actually pay for a home. So you need to take that and understand that it's going to be affected by whatever the market's doing. If this is a market where folks are tending to buy for over asking price, you may end up having to calibrate yourself to paying more than that for the average property. If not, if we're seeing things that are tending to sell for below asking price, then obviously what you'd pay for it would be less than that. So this is one of those cities where, and I imagine it would be true of anywhere in Texas or in any state where these kinds of rules are in place, getting the ground truth from a really honest agent who is going to be there to look out for your best interests is going to be one of the best things in terms of ground truth for you to understand what direction things are going. Are things going for over asking price or under asking price? And to calibrate yourself, you may even want to sort of go through the motions on a few properties just to get an idea of what's going on. Are you constantly being multiple bidded out in different situations in a community like that? On the rental side, $1,850 is the median rent per month. Now, as I look at the area, I'm going to start right there at the Capitol building in Austin. And right around there, prices are, I guess, as you'd sort of expect for that area. As you get closer to the lake, I'm seeing $2 million for a 3-bedroom, 3-bath home. I'm seeing $6.17 million for a 4-bed, 6-bath, 4,900 square foot home. $3.2 million. So clearly, right near Shoal Beach, these are areas that are extremely desirable, $1 million homes. But literally, what I love about a community like this is blocks away. For instance, as you head towards sort of the east side of town, you start to see the more reasonable numbers start to come up. You see things like $465,000 for a 5-bedroom home, $400,000 for a 3-bed, 1-bath. Let's see, where can we get some really juicy numbers here? $330,000 for a lot, unfortunately. So that's not going to be what we want. And then as we go to the west end of town, we start to see communities that are still in the $1 million range. But then as you go north, things start to get a little bit more reasonable. You'll find a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,200 square foot home, still in the downtown area, just above the University of Texas, at $390,000. Now, as I just mentioned, University of Texas at Austin is right here. So this is one of these cities that also blends in something I love, which is having an interest in a city that has a college or a university in it, or in some cases, several. I think those are great ways to insulate yourself a little bit. You can appeal to students, if you like, so that you're sort of broadening the potential reservoir of folks that you might be renting to. Now, as you move further south into Austin, you'll find that there are pockets of more affordability, and that's a relative number, right? As you head down, you'll find things in the $259,000 range, the $300,000 range. And what's also interesting is, as I scroll through some of these homes, I'm seeing price reductions noted. Here's a $305,000 home, 3-bed, 2-bath, recently dropped in price by $14,500. And I'm trying to see how many more there are. These are all ways to get a really good feel. Here's another one, $550,000 home, 3-bed, 2-bath, price drop of $45,000 recently on that one. So this is the kind of stuff that's going to tell you what's going on. If you're starting to see price drops, in particular in areas like this, that might reflect a little bit more flexibility in the marketplace in terms of you being able to be more aggressive in what you're offering. Now, other things that are cool about Austin are some of the high-tech companies that are there. I believe Dell is there. I know Austin has their Apple Computer has their technical support center located in Austin. I believe there's several other companies that have moved there recently. Keep that in mind as you're looking. So just as one other tip, most of these big companies aren't located in the heart of Austin. They tend to be in the outskirts. So you can take advantage of lower prices that are likely still going to get you really good rental rates, because these are folks that are going to want to live closer to work, and that way you're going to be taking advantage of the fact that these folks want to reduce their commute, but you're not giving yourself the additional cost of being located in downtown. Now, being located in downtown has its own advantages. Downtown Austin has great live music. So if you're someone who wants to own a property there where you're offering that, where you're getting that higher level of appeal, obviously you'd be able to charge higher levels of rent for that kind of convenience in terms of being able to simply walk out your front door and take advantage of, I forget what street it is in Austin. I want to say 6th Street, but I'm not sure that's true, where they've got just a great, if you want to bar hop, for instance, that's a great place to do that. Now, let's go ahead and take a quick look at what rents are in Austin. We'll start in that downtown area. Now, one thing that's interesting is there are an awful lot of rentals that pop up here in downtown, and we'll stick right around the Capitol here just to get an idea. Now, remember, we were talking about very high rental rates, or very high purchase rates in a lot of these properties. And when I'm looking at the areas where we were seeing multi-million-dollar properties, I'm seeing $6,200 a month for rent. But then just a block in, I'm suddenly seeing $2,500. I'm seeing $2,800. And a lot of these are for 1-bedroom, 1-bath homes. In fact, everyone I've looked at so far has been 1-bedroom, 1-bath, all 800 square feet, all $2,800 a month. And these are all right around the state capitol. 1-bedroom, 1-bath, 954 square feet for 1,950. So clearly the numbers for these indicate that you could probably get yourself a relatively decent rental here. And what's also interesting is the huge number of these that are all 1 and 2 bedrooms. So this downtown market may be one where that level of investing, being willing to, because remember, I'm one of these guys who normally preaches getting that 3-bedroom because that's usually the mainstream search. What I'm seeing here, just because of the supply, that may not be necessarily a must-have in the city of Austin in terms of the type of person who's living in this area. So that's something else you can keep in mind too. Over $1,000 for a 530 square foot home in a lot of these areas, and a 400 square foot studio, $1,125. So rental rates, and I remember the last time we did Austin was months ago, and these numbers are dramatically increased just from that. So again, I think Austin is one of those premier locations where if you can find a good deal, you should jump in. I think that probably some of your best deals, just because of the level of activity we're seeing here, this may be the beginning of really considering the mushroom effect that we've talked about in San Francisco, where your best bet maybe isn't to jump right in to downtown Austin. Now, I think you could absolutely make an investment in downtown Austin work, but I think that there's also that probability that you may be hovering more towards the top of the market there. So maybe going north to Round Rock, or maybe going to any other point of the compass and getting just a little bit outside of the city where you're not more than, say, a 20-minute drive away, but you're going to save a whole heck of a lot of money by taking advantage of that. Take advantage of the fact that folks want to get into Austin, do things in Austin, but maybe they don't want to pay quite as much as they would pay right here in the heart of town, which is some just ridiculous rents. I mean, these rents are nuts. These rents are San Francisco rents, higher than San Francisco rents that I've seen in a lot of areas. So take advantage of a market like this. Don't necessarily let yourself get sucked into buying in it. Go for those peripheral towns and communities that will let you benefit from the dramatic increases that have happened in these communities and feed your investment. All right. right, folks, I absolutely appreciate you spending your valuable time with me. I hope that each and every time you listen, you do get something useful out of it, some great little tidbit, some little idea that might bounce around in your head and help you either come up with a cool thought that you've enjoyed relating to real estate, or maybe it's helped you make the next step towards making a decision relating to what you need as a buyer, seller, or investor. Thanks again for listening, everybody. I'll talk to y'all next time.